Welcome everybody. This is the MTG Rebellion Rebelcast, and we're here with John Ramos MTG, Luis Dragon, and Optimal MTG, who I personally asked to be on here to discuss our topic today. We have two topics. I want to touch on today the surprise ban of Fable the Mirror Breaker and the surprise nerfing of Crucias to a 1 toughness creature. Notably, able to die now to Orcish Bowmasters, which it's a bit of justice, I feel. But anyway, we'll get there. And then secondarily, today I want to discuss Pioneer because I'm thinking about coming back to Paper Magic and finding a slightly competitive, a more competitive format to play than just, casual EDH. I played some casual EDH for the first time the other day with my wife. We played the Lord of the Rings decks. It was a ton of fun. But I definitely want to stay competitive, see if I can dip my toes into Pioneer. So we're going to talk with Optimal and John Ramos today about Pioneer and see what's cracking, see what's going on, what's trending in the format. 'Cause it's been a long time since I actually paid attention to it, as much as I pay attention to Explorer. All right, so let's go ahead and break it open. First topic today was the surprise Crucius nerf. I think that's more of a topic than the Fable ban. There's more to be said there, but that's just me. I'm going to turn it over to John Ramos. John Ramos, MTG. How are you, man? How are you doing today on this Sunday?
I'm good. The better question is, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing really well. I got over a sickness. We had the power outage the other day for 2 days over here in Athens, Georgia. It was terrible, but we got over it. We played Paper Magic. We finally streamed on Saturday. So yeah, I'm doing well. What's going on with this band, and how have you been doing since? I know you've been playing some Historic. What's up?
Uh, so first, before we get to that, all right, you talked about power outages in Athens. All right, for some reason, the last 3 days, I've been trying to stream live, and every time I do, I get about 2 hours in, hour and a half, whatever, and then the storm hits, and then my uploads just completely crash the stream, and I can't play anymore. So
That
I don't know
sucks.
what the hell's going on, but um Jesus is it annoying because it happened to me today and it was only storming for maybe 30 minutes and it just basically just enough to screw everything up. But anyway, tangent aside, um Fable and the surprise Crucius nerf that no one noticed because Arena didn't tell you and the article didn't post. So
Yeah, what's up
you
with
like
that?
well, anyway, first, the update went live, and then everybody went, and they're like, "All right, Fable ban, awesome," in Alchemy, which I whatever, man. Like, I've seen
Right.
a couple of, I've seen a couple of streamers, couple of content creators, play some Alchemy. The format isn't fixed, whatever. Um, then somebody, I think it was Cube April, is the one. I mean, there's a few of them that posted it, but I'm pretty sure it was Cube April that posted it first. Um, that Crucius got nerfed from a 3-3 to a 3-1, and then shortly thereafter, about 90 minutes later, uh, if the article finally got published, I think there was like some scheduling snafu or whatever of the automatic. I don't know. They didn't really explain what happened. It was just like kind of like one of those oops, you know. But anyway, the article stated that the majority of the things that happened, Fable getting banned and Crucius getting nerfed, had nothing to do with Historic. And WotC said during a Q&A or one of the devs, one of the WotC people had said in the Discord that we are overestimating the strength of Rakdos midrange and the black and the Jund decks in Historic. And
What?
this was last week. This was last week, according to a couple of people on Twitter that I follow.
Okay.
So I play a crap ton of Historic, and like I said, the article was pretty. It was pretty definitive on red black X in Alchemy as a problem, and it has been for a while. So hopefully the nerf can help. Uh, so far, content creators that are still playing Alchemy, that hasn't been the case, but it's only been what, a week maybe. and nothing has really changed. What I will say, however, is that nerf is a really big deal in historic. Uh, I don't think that it was as powerful or as big of a deal as people made it out to be. Making it a 3-1, all it did was just basically say that if you're playing historic and you're playing the black cards, you're playing for orcish bowmasters, period, end of story. And if you're not, there's maybe one deck that isn't, and the rest of the black decks are playing four, because it's one of the best black cards in the format. Um,
Whoa.
I mean,
It
it
is. It
kills it,
is.
it kills everything. Like it
Yeah.
kills Crucias, it kills itself, which is really annoying because you have to have it or get buried in card advantage because it's I I don't. So there's two things that I want to say, and it's going to be paradoxically nonsense. It's they exist to counteract each other with the ring. So if you're playing the one ring, your counter to the one ring, or vice versa, I should say, your counter to the one ring um is supposed to be the Orcish Bowmasters. And incidentally enough, how do you draw out of it? Well, you play the ring because the ring is the best. The one ring is the best 4-drop sorcery draw spell ever. It's better than Jace. It's better than any draw spell that you've ever played ever. And the card's annoying. I found out today that Creeping Chill does not lose life. It does damage.
Oh
So
wow.
it stops that even. Because there's a lot of stuff that you just incidentally stop with the one ring. But getting back to the Crucius nerf, Jund and Black Red X decks with Crucius were just like the best things to be doing, because what the format had become was you basically trade, interact with your opponent, and then on 3 you just jammed Crucius on 3 because it didn't really die to too much. And the way you beat Crucius on 3 is to play your own on the draw. But you played yours first because you always had the option to just pitch your card, and then you had a fatal push in hand. So when the opponent played theirs next, uh, you would push theirs before they got the trigger, and then you're way ahead.
Okay.
That's not the case anymore because you can't just jam Crucius on 3 anymore because it's a 3-1. And what people don't realize is that dying to a literal sneeze is a big deal in this format. So, like, yeah, it's a 3-1, and people are like, I don't think it really matters. I'm like, yeah, it does, because it dies to everything. Dies to Spikefield Hazard, dies to Bowmasters, which everybody's playing anyway if you're in black. Dies to Chain Whirler. There's a bunch of other things that deal 1 damage or 2 damage for that matter, that just deal with it. So you can't just whimsically just throw Crucius on 3 and just be like, it's the best thing I can do, because it blocked well and it scaled you up. And what you would do is you would just play, a bunch of 3s, pitch additional 3s, and then you just played the best cards that you can play at 6 or 7. And you only had to play one of them because Crucius would find it for you.
Doesn't it
That's not the
also?
case.
Sorry.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
was
No,
gonna
you're
say,
good.
doesn't it also die to like that cast into the fire, which is that card that gets sideboard to destroy the one ring?
Yeah, now it dies to cast into the fire, but like the Black Red X decks that are playing it are not playing it for that. It just incidentally deals with Crucius now. They
Huh.
were doing it for the Jarseal decks were playing it to basically have additional answers to the One Ring and additional
Ah.
answers to Bowmaster if you didn't draw Bowmaster. So it was essentially like Bowmaster 5 and 6 that incidentally hit the One Ring because Cast into the Fire is a 2-drop or 2-drops instant or sorcery. I think it's a sorcery, but it might be an instant that deals 1 damage to up to 2 target creatures,
Yeah.
and you choose one or the other, and it exiles a target artifact.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so the nerf is significant because you don't dying to a sneeze is a problem, and it's not better than Fable anymore because you can't just jam it on 3. Fable, you can jam it on 3 and not be upset about it. Whereas Crucius, you run a really high risk of throwing it on 3 and then it just dying to anything, and then you don't get the payoff. And even if you do get the payoff, you're only getting it once. So like you're accelerating, but you're only accelerating like once because once the opponent untaps, you're just like, yeah, whatever, I'll deal with it. It's not a big deal.
Right.
Whereas you had to actually like pay attention because a 3/3, which is really odd to say, a 3/3 is more intimidating than a
Mhm.
3/1 because it didn't it basically did
By
everything
far.
you wanted it to. It
Yeah.
attacked well, it blocked well, and it scaled you. It was like basically playing with Uro, but you didn't get the life. And that's
Yeah.
basically what it was.
Yeah.
And now it's not like that anymore because it doesn't attack well, it doesn't block well, and scaling is a thing in historic, but now it's not nearly as big of a deal now.
That was roughly my assessment as well. That it was. I'm on the side that giving it 1 toughness is a huge deal, not a small deal. Even if you don't do anything to the rest of the text on the card, I still think that's a huge deal. Just like, yeah, that's what I think as well.
This Yeah, yeah, the specific reason they dropped it to 1 is because all the thing, and they said this in the article, is that the majority of the changes that they have been making in Alchemy or to the cards specifically were for Alchemy. It had nothing to do with historic. So it
Yeah.
incidentally had stuff for historic, but really like it's not that big of a deal. And it just made uh the Jundi decks worse, which is not really that big of a problem because they were already too it wasn't that
Hmm.
they were too good. It's just like now more decks have an option to where they don't have to worry about like, oh, well, Crucius is not really that big of a problem because it's like if you drew a 2 or 1 damage spell because you do play them, it's like, damn, how many do I play? Because I have to kill Crucius, right? Now
Yeah.
you don't have to be afraid of that anymore, where you could just be like, I can play whatever damage spell I want because the majority of the stuff that kills the 1 and 2 toughness stuff also kills Crucius. So it's kind of like a win-win in this situation. So this does not change the tier list that much.
Yeah.
Historic is wide open. There are a couple decks that probably are too good, but it's just off the power of some of the Lord of the Rings cards. But honestly, I like where the format is. There's a control deck, there's an aggro deck, there's a mid-range deck, and there's a combo deck, and there's a couple of, I don't want to say tier ones uh in between, but there's something for everyone if you want to be casual, if you want to be semi-competitive, or you want to be the spike and the tier ones. There's something for everybody, and they're all competitive. Problem is that the majority of the cards you need to play with are mostly Lord of the Rings cards. So if you're playing
Yep.
black, you have to play Bowmasters. You have to play the Ring. You don't have to play it. There's certain decks that just don't play it. But if you don't play it, you better have a plan to deal with it because it'll just bury you if you don't answer it, and there are only specific cards that do it. And if you're in the Jundi red black X decks, you're playing Jarseal, and if you're in the white decks, I would just stay away from them because the white cards are so bad. They all died to Bowmasters. Um so there's not really a wide aggro deck, but there is Wizards that's decent. um, Check out the historic 7-0 decks off of MTG Arena Zone and um, on Twitter because, like I said, there's something for everybody on there. So format's wide open.
Very cool. I'm gonna post up real quick the and I'll share the screen as well with y'all. Um, we've got, well, I'll get to what's on the screen right now. It's Croaky's alchemy list. We'll talk about that in just a second. I want to ask Luis if he's been playing any historic, but let's I want to show also if I can change windows here. Let's see. MTG Assistance, traditional historic picture.
It's not showing up. There we go.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. So let's take a look here. Look, top deck, obviously, Jund. Like, it's already surprised there. 2 Rakdos decks coming down in there. And, 5 of the top 6 are decks including black. So
And
making some very general assumptions, but it's safe to say that quite a few of the top decks use Lord of the Rings cards. Rakdos colors are very powerful. Black is a very powerful color right now. Countering the One Ring is a thing. So yeah, definitely confirms a lot of what you've been saying, John Ramos.
Well, also, and I'll actually show it here. I'm gonna share my screen here for, whoops, for, um, the historic meta from Untapped.
Yeah,
And like I
we're looking at
said,
it. Yep. Go ahead.
the popularity and the win rates are the same decks. Demir Control is good.
Mhm.
And like I said, there's the control deck, which is Demir. You have Rakdos and Jund mid range, which is the mid range deck. Abzan Sacrifice, which is basically Yawgmoth. Now there's a
Holy
bunch of
moly.
with a bunch of decks with Abzan. So there's Yawgmoth
Mhm.
specifically, which is not Abzan, it's just green black. Then there's Abzan Sacrifice, which is the Eshlizzle, the priest, uh collected company Samwise like combo type deal with Samwise and the cat. And then there's the combination of the Yawgmoth and Samwise deck together, where they just basically jam both decks together and hope they do it because Quarter Calling is so good. And Mono Green Devotion is kind of whatever. Like I know it's in there, but like sure. And then Wizards is the aggro deck. So there's something for everybody. And those win rates, um, like I said, is I think the Ogmoth deck is a little too good, but um, and we haven't even talked about Kethis, which is also like is not being played right now, and it's still like a top deck also, which is also a combo deck. And
Yeah.
the control deck and the Wizards deck have good matchups against it because it's just mono removal dot deck. And all they do is they just everything. If you're not playing control, you're playing mid range, it's just all removal. And then um you don't see the blue white cards because if you're gonna play a blue control deck, you have to have black in it for Bowmasters. You have to. It's like non-negotiable. And then if you're playing blue white, you might as well play Esper, which Turtlebox was doing, where they're just playing sweepers and um divine purges and leyline bindings and lay down arms with the land cyclers to get up to domain and still playing with islands. And yeah, so there's like a bunch of stuff you could do. And I'm working on uh a dredgeless dredge with some alchemy cards that I think people forgot about, and I just found it today. I was working on um a vampires list. So like, and my win rates are above 55-60%. So like
Hell
it
yeah.
doesn't it doesn't really like you can play whatever you want. And that's the cool thing about the format is much like Explorer or Pioneer. The older formats right now, like they're open. Now it's stupid. I don't want to say stupid, but it's one of those things with the older formats where really you can lump standard in this too. This is probably the healthiest every format has been in a really, really long time.
You know,
And
I'm
I
willing to
don't
agree
say
with
that
you.
I don't want to say that lightly because I've been listen, I played this game for close to 30 years now. Close, not quite, but close. And I've been through some terrible standards. I've been through some terrible extendeds. I've played modern, but I wasn't like the modern like what modern is today. But um besides legacy and vintage, modern, pioneer, and standard, uh like there are a lot of decks. Like I don't know. I think it's healthy. Now, are there stuff that's a little too good in certain spots? Sure. But it's a lot better than it used to be. Like if you would have
Yeah.
said this like if you would have told me that this is where it would be in even close to like 6 months ago to a year ago, possibly even 18 months, like there's no way anybody would say like, oh, there's no way. Like where standard has a different deck at the top every week and
Yeah.
no different, no, not the same deck as winning pioneer challenges and modern challenges. And we're about to have a PT with Pioneer or Modern or Legacy or whatever. So like, yeah, Magic is format wise is in a really good spot in every facet, and hell, even Historic too, which not very many people play it, but I'm telling you, the format is not bad.
I would have to agree with you. I can only speak for the formats that I play, of course, but at least with the arena formats, I can say that it's definitely been healthy for quite some time. And I know it's been an unpopular opinion to say that standard was healthy, but it really is. Even pre-ban standard, right? It had its hangups with Rakdos and Grixis, but there were still decks on the outside that still had a chance, and the bans only
Format
made that stronger, in my opinion.
format context huge here because it really depends on what you like. And for newer players, they might not understand the difference between format context between this year and say a year ago or 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago or
Mm-hmm.
however long they are.
Oh
But for
yeah.
somebody who has played a very, very long time, I'm telling you, this is where you want to be, where you know that there's certain aspects of the game or certain aspects of the format where there's just the best thing to be doing in certain colors. But when you're able to pivot and make decisions based on where the meta is at the time, and those decisions matter, and edging out as many percentage points as you can, that's the heart of the game, where meta shifts happen based on what decisions you make, as opposed to when before the bans, where it was just like, no, the best thing to be doing is just playing these two colors because nothing else even comes close. And uh the same could be said for any format that had bans prior to, where this is the best thing to be doing. It's not close. Those formats are not healthy. Even if playing the mirror is where you want to be at, that's not what I define as healthy. Not everybody agrees. Those people that love to just jam green black mid range in the standard, where they were just jamming a bunch of mid rangey creatures, and whoever edged out the best value, that's what people like. I don't like that type of stuff. I like to have multiple decks where you can make decisions and those decisions matter.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Speaking of which, this is a good segue. Before I get to Louis Dragon, because I want to ask him a little bit about his experiences with streamer showdowns and ladder play and historic. Um, on the screen, I have the Sultai kinda list by Stephen Krog that allegedly went 16-0, climbing from number 4 all the way to number 3.
Yeah, he
That's its own.
was 14. I saw it. He was
Oh,
14-0 when I saw it last.
Wow. This is the list. As you can see, it's a 5-color list, mostly Sultai. But right, 4 copies of Orcish Bowmaster. Just jam 4 Agents of Rafine, 4 of the Halfling. And you got a Tyvar in there. You got just a Planeswalker party. What's going on here? Is Alchemy healthy, or are there specific cards that you can just jam and pretty much guarantee a win rate, or is Croaky's just that person who has figured out alchemy and is gonna have it figured out for a long time? What's your take?
mine?
Yeah, Luis, what do you
Ah,
think?
okay. Well, I'm saying the cookies deck. I will start with saying that Crook is the few persons that those best of 3 games that has a big impact in overall in the meta. We are
Hmm.
talking like he is always being watched by 600 people,
Yeah.
500 people.
Hmm.
So he's a big. He always has a big impact in all the games. I started looking at him because before entering here in the rebellion and before meeting you guys, it was very difficult to find best of 3 content.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, he has a big impact. For what I haven't played too much alchemy lately because I don't think that the meta right now is like super variable.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem with alchemy, and I do want it to triumph and be better. The thing is like when we get let me search for the curve. It was the Dimir creature
Oh,
um, that made a clock tower. It
yeah,
was
Rusko. Rusko the
Oh,
Rusco.
Rusco.
clockmaker.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rusco.
When we get Rusco, everybody was playing Dimir. I mean, even I did a deck with Roscoe, and it was extremely overpowered. Everyone was playing it. My problem with Alchemy is that every time they bring some cards, I think they are a little too unbalanced. So everyone is playing the same cards. For example, we had a time when everyone also was playing, and still I think a lot of people were playing with Crucias. Crucias is an excellent card. I think that the nerf that they give it, even in Alchemy, it's very good because yeah, it dies to Bowmaster and also dies to cut down. Card that it was extremely prevalent in all all decks, on all black decks. Now, changing, for example, for historic, I do use Crucias in two decks primarily. One is Nifmiset, and the other is an Atraxa Reanimator deck. So before the nerf to Crucias, my Atraxa Reanimator deck had a 60-65% win rate. It was very high because you have the chance. Like for example, I tend to use burial rights. I send burial rights to the graveyard, and I have my attacks on hand. Next turn, I just need to survive. Crucius to survive one turn, and send Atraxa to the graveyard, and have a lesser value card, maybe a land, maybe anything I need. But Crucius, it's very powerful because it gives you the opportunity to, if you know the value of your cards and your cards are separated in certain ways, you know what are you drawing. Everything that you have, you can search like exactly for the card that you need. So after the ban, after the nerf, yeah, my Atraxa has diminished a lot in the win rate because, for example, I needed Crucias to be alive 2 turns. And that is very hard to do with now Bowmaster. For example, for Nimiset, I really need a Crucius to be one turn because normally when I play Crucius, all for my Nimiset deck, all my cards are the costliest one is 3 power, except for Nimiset. So any card that I throw, it will give me almost automatically Nimiset, my treasure token, and the next turn I just need a land. And I can go out. But for a reanimator deck, where you need to, if you haven't found your reanimator spell, you need to search for your reanimator, and one next turn you need to have a way to throw to send to the graveyard the creature that you want to reanimate. So I think that for reanimator decks, the nerf that Crucias was mm, more impactful than other decks. For example, for me that I use it in Living Set. Mm, I feel that the meta in historic is really good. You can see a great variety of decks. Obviously, there is always gonna be a tier 1 deck, tier 1 2 deck, tier 3 deck. But I think that you can see more. Although not a lot of people plays it, I do see more variety in historic than in explorer and standard. And I think that, I mean, historic, it should be the deck with most variety because it has the most cards. And I think that the people who left historic because of the introduction of alchemy cards and everything, I mean, it's their choice. I'm not criticizing anyone's choice, but they should try to look again at historic. It's really fun to play. The Lord of the Rings cards have made a great impact and are really fun. I am playing with the Tron deck. And I added in the Tron deck, I added these new cards. Let me see. Give me a second. For
Yeah, I have.
example,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
you want me to show the deck? Or
Yeah, you can share the screen if you like. I was just gonna say really quick before you get back to talking about it that yeah, I
yeah.
think it has been a boost for the morale of people playing historic that the Lord of the Rings set has been so impactful. I think it's actually a good thing. But go ahead.
Yeah. So for this strong version, I added two Palantir Overneck. I really haven't tested them, but the main reason of this is like the strong deck is basically bring your heavy hitters. So the thing that Palantir Overneck it's always lets you know which is the next card you're gonna draw. I mean, the one you put in second place. Now, the one you put in first place is maybe a card you need or maybe a card you want to draw, but you are always risking it that the player doesn't want it to draw you, so he's gonna send it to the graveyard, but he's gonna lose life. And in this case, I mean, sending a normal lock, uh, mm, so it's like a total 10 mana, a total 10 life lost to a player. And with the heavy use that Black has, and with the heavy use that Toxic has, we are talking that almost everyone in their opening hands has Toxic, always in turn one. I don't know, so it makes I feel that it makes the loss, the life loss, a little more important in this kind of deck. The other one new card that I add is one Power Stone. Is from the newest. How is the name? The new anthologies. The new anthologies. It's good. The problem and it helps you to go very fast. But the problem I have seen it in history is the 2/2 white 1 mana. It exiles all cards with 3 or less value. What's the name? I forget.
Temporary lockdown?
Gigantic.
Yeah, temporary lockdown. So this deck has a important problem with temporary lockdown because your fast mana is always um, can be exiled and it's not really worth it to pay it 2 extra mana to have the same mana. But when you have Forsaken Monument, you can play everything. And the one other thing that I add is the One Ring. The One Ring, it's an extremely good card in every deck. Here it has a great use because in Tron decks also you want to have very quickly your mana, your cards, and your heavy hitters. And this helps you to draw a lot. So I think, for example, I do like a lot of these decks, like Tron deck and everything, and I think it's a healthy change. But I do like that it has its counters, like the Orkwalk Master. It's a great card. It's a great counter for a lot of cards like the Sentinel, mm, the White Sentinel,
Oh, Esper Sentinel?
Esper Sentinel. So I really do like how the historic meta is changing. It has a lot of variety. The one deck that can deal now at the moment with Crucias is Win, unless you have a fight spell. I think that's color green without anything else. It could be the deck that, yeah, it can have very heavy hitters, but also almost lets you do anything that you want.
Yeah.
So for me, yeah, continue.
Okay. Thank you for highlighting how Lord of the Rings
Mm.
has impacted your historic play. I think I agree very much with some of your conclusions that it has very much impacted the way a lot of people have played historic and have thought about what their opponents might be playing. Orcish Bowmasters in particular, the One Ring, of course. We can't sing that card's praises enough. And thank you for showing off your Tron deck as well. I pulled up Croaky's Alchemy deck just to kind of highlight the point that there's always going to be brewers in every format, but I think that the Alchemy format in particular, and historic to some degree because it's impacted by Alchemy, is open to brewing. Like I know John Ramos has said most of these formats are healthy, and they are. But I think one of the reasons that Alchemy has seen the least amount of changes is because there's not enough people in it brewing. there's definitely room for more tier 1, tier 2 lists in Alchemy, but there's nobody out there to create them or craft them. It's just kind of like we've considered the format solved for some time now, just because nobody's really tried. Is my opinion on my whole take on the matter. But I love the health of Historic. I do. I really love the health of Historic, especially because a lot more people play it, and a lot more people have the cards for it, especially considering anthologies. What were you going to say, John Ramos?
I could give is real quick of why Alchemy is in the place that it's in. Um, Alchemy's
Yeah, go ahead.
problem. Alchemy's problem is there's a lot of them, and I know I've talked about this before, but I'm just going to reiterate that this is coming from somebody when Alchemy was announced, and the idea was there. It's like, man, this is going to be great. This idea is awesome because the idea of being able to have a digital space where you don't like something or your format is not doing what it's supposed to or what you thought it would be, you could just change the card. You can't do that in paper. So, and it's very rare that they do. But you could do that in Alchemy. And the majority of the Alchemy cards that have seen the light of day, the majority of them are pushed cards, which I don't have a problem with. Like, sure, I wasn't too happy about the Alchemy drop cards, but I'm like, hey, more cards is more cards, and I'll do whatever. And they wanted a new format, that's fine. What I don't like is when you push cards and then you refuse to change them. That's where uh that's where I dissent. Like, I don't care if you want to side grade, upgrade, nerf stuff. You can do that. But you can't just have one or two cards get nerfed or buffed or whatever and just be like, well, we don't have to change the format anymore. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Like, yo, this is a digital format that should see multiple churns and multiple changes like every few weeks, like every other
Right?
digital game,
The
like
bans
patches.
and the bans and changes should be like every other week. Like they should be
I don't
experimenting highly.
That's the thing that I don't like is they treated it worse than paper, like in the sense of they're not going to change much. And they've said and they've doubled down on it. And basically the way Alchemy is they're not going to change anything unless unless they feel that it's beyond their threshold of what is acceptable, and they're not going to do like they did or they say the intent to change or have multiple changes every couple weeks. Like, it's not going to happen, and people need to get over it. Like, I'm already over it. That's why I don't play the format anymore. What I
Yeah.
thought was supposed to be what it was is the reason why I left is because you're just allowing this stuff to happen. You're not changing anything and you're okay with it. Like, you're fine with these formats to be running wild with nonsense. The trap finder nonsense, the revels nonsense, like the combo cards is just not okay. Like,
I
and they
wonder
didn't
I
change
wonder
anything.
I wonder what the bottleneck is, you know. I mean, none of us really know. We'd have to ask an arena developer to really know, but like there's got to be people there that are frustrated that want to see the same changes that we want to see, that maybe the person who head started Arena's campaign for an Alchemy format was like, "Oh yeah, like they had anticipation of a lot of changes like we're expecting, but you know, maybe somebody at Wizards has messed that up. I don't know. I really
I don't.
think there was a lot more ambition there than what's being played out right now, like you're saying.
I think the other major reason why I think Alchemy is where it is currently is, and this is, I think I'm going to point blame at both sectors. I'm going to blame WotC for this. I'm going to put them on blast first because you gave us hope where you shouldn't have. And I will continue to beat this drum every day on a daily where you have to be more transparent. I am tired of you giving me coach speak answers and corporate speak every time that you come on here and say and throw, a PR person up there and just not answer any questions for an hour and say like, well, we did. It's like, nah, man, that's not transparency. You just don't want to, you're just dodging the stuff until you can have the secret service or the secret sauce. And it's just like a little bit of transparency would go a long way. And a little bit of change is not that big a deal. My other gripe is with Magic players believing that they can have their cake and eat it too. Listen, I think people
That's
need
fair.
to get over I think people need to get over the idea that Arena is never giving you free wildcards and they're very stingy with them. And I've had levied this argument before, but like I always catch flack for it. If you're buying into standard, and this is something that I think WotC has done, and they're highly aware of this, but nobody really talks about it. It's just like they talk about it, it's like barrier to entry is sort of is a thing. And WotC wants you to have a barrier to entry to every format, including standard. So like if you're a limited player, you don't really have to do much. You pay $10, you play the slot machine with your draft or your sealed, and no one really cares. Like no one says anything. And the majority of the sets that people make, and even the master sets, are just limited stuff, and you pay the price of whatever the packs are. You're at the whims of it. You play standard, you're at the whims of what you pay for packs if you do open them, and you're at the whims of, how to buy singles and all that in the secondary market. If you want to play digital, and then now your choice is, do I play digital and paper? Because if you're playing paper, that means you're trying to be as free to play as possible, and ergo, you're probably going into Arena or MTGO, depending on how much disposable income you have. Here's where I get upset, or rather, this is where I want to tell Magic players, like, listen, you can't have everything. If you buy in to Historic or Alchemy, you know what risk you're about to take. Period. If you buy in, that's it. You're in it. It's like a terms of service, right? You got to read the fine print. If you buy into Historic and you want to play that format, you run the risk of your shit getting nerfed with nothing, with no buybacks or anything. And of course, everybody's going to say, well, it would go a long way for it to have some, some help or whatever. But to get my stuff back, if I buy into a deck and it gets nerfed, and it's like, yeah, but you don't get that in paper. I'm like, well, I get to sell my stuff back. Well, theoretically, you've already done that because Historic, or rather Arena, is 2.5 to 3 times less than you buy in paper. So you're already getting it at a discount. What else do you want? Like,
yeah,
you can't have it all, man. It's you already bought in, so you already understand that the mere existence of the digital change is what you're buying into, and that's a social contract. The moment that you engage with the format and you buy Historic or Alchemy cards, that's what the contract is. I buy in at a cheaper price. I don't get buybacks or rewards for when stuff gets nerfed. And if stuff gets banned, they really didn't even have to give you wild cards, but enough of they saw a dip in their bottom line.
I have to push back. I have to play devil's advocate for the viewer at home who might disagree, because I know this audience exists. They would say, I think the climate of, and let's open this up, forest from the trees. I think the climate of free-to-play gaming and mobile gaming and PC gaming as well, and the fact that games are now competitive, esports, they come out in seasons, especially shooting games, right? There's like, you pay for a mastery pass kind of thing, and you get something on it. You may not. It changes the game. There's patch updates. It's going to change the class that you typically play. Like, that's an expectation now, what you're talking about in games. And I think a lot of people, playing devil's advocate, I think a lot of people on the other side would say that that's not fair, that that's not what gaming should be, that you should be able to pay a price and know what you're getting. And to that I say Arena's probably the most experimental form of Magic that gives the ability for it to have room to kind of be a little shisty, I guess. But I don't know.
It's
I
not
think.
even.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say you already know what you're getting into when you're dealing with WotC, and for the newer players that have the argument, which is valid to say, like when I bought the card, because I think Binary Soloist on Twitter and a couple others have made this argument, which is
Yeah,
valid.
I've seen
It's
those.
like
Go ahead.
when I buy or I craft a Crucias, I crafted it with the idea that I knew what I was getting when I got the card that I wanted. So
Yeah.
like, for example, when I buy a card physically, it's not changing. I bought it with the idea that this is not changing. It's tangible, and this is what it's going to be forever. So yeah, I understand that, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but this is not paper. Like, if you really want
Optimal. I
want,
wonder what Optimal thinks, because Optimal plays a
I'm
lot of
sure
MTGO.
right, like
and
I
has a
said, in
different set of
MTGO, the same thing.
expectations.
Like, and he could say something after this, like I'm gonna make a point, and then he can
No,
answer
go ahead.
this,
Go ahead.
like,
Let's hear from Optimal first. Let's hear from Optimal
all right, go
first.
ahead.
It's been a minute. Go ahead. Go
All
ahead,
right, go ahead.
Optimal.
Can I add a point later when everyone?
Yeah, go ahead.
After Optimal. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, was I beckoned?
You were beckoned.
So we're complaining about Arena as a whole here.
Yeah, like
It's
wild
not-
cards, expectations around wild cards. Like MTGO doesn't have that kind of thing going on. It's like when you buy a card in MTGO, it's the card and it doesn't change. So how does that change expectations?
Yeah, well, I mean, first things first. Obviously, the main difference between MTGO and Arena is the market, right? There's specifically a card market for Magic Online, right? So it's supposed to mimic paper in a way, but it's generally meant to be cheaper, which is kind of a little weird now because a lot of the cards that usually come out right away are way more expensive online than they are in paper nowadays. But then they tend to like shoot down just as fast a lot of the time. But if we're talking about Arena, I think there's more of an inherent issue in terms of the population of players who are playing Arena, as opposed to the issues of the client itself. So what I mean by that is we obviously know since COVID took over and we're on the other side of COVID now, I would definitely say that the highest populace of players on Arena are players who play Brawl. Am I far from the truth here?
You might be right.
Well,
We'll have to look at
nah,
the
I don't-
population numbers. There's a graph.
don't know.
I'll go search it. I'll go search it real quick. Go ahead.
I am like, and I'm probably be wrong. It's high, but it does not outweigh standard.
But I think
And
a lot
by standard, I mean all of it. Best of 1, best of 3. I
Okay,
it's the
yeah,
most
fine.
popular in that.
Let me rephrase and resculpt this. It's a lot of people playing best of 1.
I included them.
Oh,
Like,
that's
as
great.
in as all of them as a whole, standard is more popular than Brawl is.
I found it.
If you group all of them by
Sure.
uh,
But I mean, I know that there are a lot of Brawl players who do play standard best of 1 just because it's best of 1 and they don't mind dipping their toes in it, right? It's the
Sure.
same thing as a limited best of 1. That's a whole different discussion. But it's more of the types of players that you're looking at Arena are usually the ones who are either playing a lot of Brawl or they're playing a lot of best of 1 regardless of the format that they're playing, right? Because they want quick, fast games and they don't want to take forever in doing stuff, right? They want to play a pickup game and
Yeah, 5
then go
minutes.
to or pick up another game, do an errand, right, and stuff like that, right? So I mean, so let's imagine the populace of these individuals. In this sense, a lot of them, and we've probably also seen it on Twitter, all these outcries, is a lot of them, they want whatever cards they end up losing, they want it replaced in wild cards that are free, right? They don't want to have to see cards get nerfed, and then all of a sudden they don't get free wild cards of it, so they can't use it elsewhere, right? Those are usually the complaints that are coming out.
Yeah.
I would concur. Yeah.
So, with that being the case, we are looking at a lot of people who want digital Arena to be the same as, well, to be cheaper than paper, right? Because Wild cards come at a cost, and gems come at a cost, right? And if I can remember, drafting on Arena is more expensive than drafting on Magic Online.
That is correct. And I would also add to what you're saying that there's also a free to play expectation. Like there's a part of the population that comes to Arena from outside Magic and just sees it as a free to play game.
Yeah, and if we look at something like Hearthstone, right? I haven't touched Hearthstone mostly, but from my understanding, they have a dusting mechanic, right?
Yeah.
And you can undust. Let's say, for example, if we had an equivalent on Arena, the idea would be you can undust a rare wild card and then use it somewhere else. But that doesn't exist on Arena, right? So it's much less of a free to play as opposed to a grind to play.
Correct.
Well, I want to get the dusting thing out of the way because it always comes up all the time, and WotC is triple down on dusting.
Yeah.
It's never happening. So like anybody who discussed it is just like, it's not coming. It's never happening.
Of course.
I understand why people want it, but it's a worse feeling to dust your stuff because the value is never there, and the wildcard system is essentially what dusting is, except you don't get to go back on it when you use them. But outside of drafting, the cost of playing specifically, like I'm not free to play. I pay more probably than the average person on Arena does, and
I think we're all whales.
I guarantee you that I've spent a lot less money on Arena than I have ever in paper, just because of how much
yeah.
are.
That's what I was going to bring up, if nobody else was, is just how little my cost is compared to paper. And especially as a content creator, you can kind of justify it as a content creator, but just as a player, it's still so much less than when I was buying booster boxes.
Like, I think standard, I think the average cost for a deck is like $200. I might be wrong, but I'm not looking. But I can spend $200 every set and have every deck.
Same.
And it's not even close. Like, I spend 2.5 times less, because if you look at it just in aggregate, like how much a booster box is in paper, it's what, $120, $110, somewhere around there for 36 packs.
120, yeah, more or less.
Yeah. So I can spend $100 in gems and get 20,000 gems for $100 and spend just shy of 20,000 gems, like 18,000 for 90 packs. 90, not 36, 90. Now, of course, I can't trade those, but that was another point I was going to bring up. I mean, I got multiple, but see, I interact with Arena differently than the average person does. I readily accept the moment that I turn Arena on, or the moment that I downloaded the game the very first time and went into the beta, I readily accepted, because you can't trade the cards, that this is a money pit, and every dollar that I spend on Arena is literally flushed down the toilet. I will never get this value back, ever.
I think that's fair. I think
that's fine. I'm cool with that. So the argument of, well, I can sell my cards back in paper or MTGO, which is a fine argument you can make, but at the same time, you're not going to get the same amount of value that you get off of Arena than you do off of those of selling your cards back. And if I may, MTGO or even in paper, you already have dusting built in, which is the wildcard system. However, your dusting system is, if something gets banned in standard or any format, right? You can just sell because most places now, if the card gets banned, if you bought it within 30 days, they'll buy it back from you.
Is that true?
I know CFB did it. I don't know if they do it now, but I know that they've done it before. Places have done it. Where
they were doing it fast.
Yeah, so
that's wild, man.
not only that, if you can sell on MTGO, or you can sell your cards back, and you won't get the immediate value, but you get the value that you had when you bought them. So, for example, your Rakdos cards in Standard may have dipped a little bit because Invoke, Fable, and Bankbuster were banned, but like Commander also keeps these cards afloat as well. Not to mention that even if the cards get banned, they might be playable in other formats and they may dip in value a little bit, but you get to sell them back. That's dusting in itself because you already paid whatever it is for a card and you're selling it back for less value and you're getting the money back to buy another deck. And nerfing to me is virtually the same thing. Whereas they didn't completely make your deck unplayable, right? Like, for example, when Crucias gets nerfed, is red, black, or Jund, specifically in Historic? Now, I don't know how it is in Alchemy because I don't play the format, but in Historic, the deck is still playable. In fact, it's still tier 1. So, like, I don't understand how anybody can be like, well, I want my cards back. I want my wild cards back. And it's just like, your whole deck's still playable, man. Like, yeah, you have to stop playing Crucias. And in fact, I would say Crucias is really not that bad. Like, it's still fine. Yeah, there's a Dyed Bowmaster or whatever, but the card was too good. Like, I mean, fine. But those are the points, and not to mention, and this is an aside, and really the overall arching structure that I was getting to for specifically why Alchemy is a problem is every set that you get is draftable, right? And Alchemy is not that. Besides
Right?
Alchemy Horizons, which
No,
is, I
so
don't even think that was I don't even think that was draftable either.
well,
wanted-
Alchemy is draftable.
I wanted to
But-
Alchemy
hang
is
on.
draftable.
I gotta stop you, John Ramos. I wanted to get to, because we're running out of time on a couple of things. I wanted to get to what Luis wanted to say about, earlier, and then I also wanted to get to our discussion on Pioneer. Luis, do you recall what you had to say regarding Historic and all the moves and shifts and everything that's going on?
I was going to talk about what John was talking about, the expensive of the game. Is
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, that's right.
Some
Go
days,
ahead.
Some days ago, I introduced my best friend to. He always hated Arena. Magic. He doesn't like, but he loves the Lord of the Rings. So we were watching. We shared half a half to buy some collector boosters. Man, they are extremely expensive. The collector boosters are like $200 booster set or $400.
Yeah.
I mean, it's extremely expensive. So then I introduced him to Arena and said, "You can look about all the cards here," he was asking me about the price, and I said, "No, it's like I mean, every booster it's like $1 or less than $1." I mean, every booster is extremely cheap in Arena. And I was talking to him about prices in Mexico pesos, and he says, "Oh, okay. So the gems, the recommended boost gems is here like it's $20 in USA, like 400 pesos here. Now
Oh,
with
okay.
the dollar being a little more cheaper, it's like 350. With all the all the extra charges and fees." So he said, "Oh, it's very cheap. It doesn't hurt so much like buying a set of collector cards because you want the Witch King, let's say. You open all those cards, you get a lot of cards that you all the four sets, still you get more cards of the same set. It's like they obviously in real life the booster sets they are not protected against more than 4 cards of the same. Like we have in Arena, it's awesome because with the Master Pass and the few cards that you can buy with very limited, like let's say for example, me for set, I can spend $100, 150 because of Alchemy. So and that's more than enough to get you a set. And also we got the golden booster packs. Man, they completed all my standard sets. because they only give you rares and mythics. And if you wanna complete some set with a gold booster pack that they are giving you for every 10 booster that you buy, that doesn't need to be with money. You can buy with the daily missions, and for daily wins, you can buy one booster a day. So you can buy without paying any money 90 boosters. And for only, let's say, if you do the minimum that is winning four games and your daily mission, you can buy at least 90 boosters. That will give you also nine golden boosters. And depending if you play competitive, well, you also get some free boosters and free money, and each of at the end of each month. I mean, I think it's extremely cheap. I'm not a heavy time concession asking you for 4 wins.
Yeah.
It's easy to make it.
Yeah.
You can have almost a half set without expending any money. And if you are good with draft, well, you can go free. Also, the alchemy, whenever alchemy set comes out, we have like 2 or 3 weeks with draft. So now we can draft also alchemy set. Yes, just
This
like
is
so.
yeah.
I
This.
personally,
Go ahead.
Jen,
I was
you were gonna say something?
I was gonna just wrap that whole
Mhm.
section up by agreeing with you and saying that this is why I have been such a huge advocate for Arena as an accessibility option to be able to practice and get lots of matches out in a short period of time with a great variety of decks very cheaply. So yeah,
That's it. So the nerfs and the bans. Bans are always worse in every way because a ban can kill you a deck totally. But a nerf, for example, for this Crucias nerf, the card is doing the same. It's exactly doing the same. Just it's easier to kill. So you just now to wait for the right moment to cast it, for getting at least one activation, or see what your opponent is playing, because also your opponent has to let free mana from their turn if they want to kill it a Crucias in the moment it lands on game. So I think it's a very good balance, and I wouldn't like more wild cards because the card is functionally exactly the same, just easier to kill it. That's my opinion.
it's not exactly valued as a full card exchange at that point. You're still getting a lot of value. I don't know. I'm back and forth on it myself. But I guess a lot has to be said for that. Let us know in the comments what you think personally on the ban, the surprise ban, and the surprise nerf as well. We didn't talk a lot about Fable the Mirror Breaker, but as I suspected, Orcish Bowmaster being able to hit Crucius was going to be the bigger topic. But anyway, let's move on to our final topic. I personally asked Optimal MTG to come on and talk to us a little bit about Pioneer. I am dipping my toes into paper. I really want to start playing some Pioneer at a competitive level, play some Tier 1, Tier 2 stuff. I have at hand the Pioneer Challenger decks that you can buy from last year, and they have Izzet Phoenix, they have like Orzhov Humans, Dimir Control, and Gruul Stompy. And, there's that, right? I can purchase those and go buy singles. I have two questions basically for Optimal first. What would be the most efficient path to get there? Like, what deck should I be really trying to get first? And secondly, what is the picture right now in Pioneer? What's the trend? How are things changing and shifting in that format?
Okay, so with Pioneer right now, the current landscape is Rakdos Midrange, Rakdos Sacrifice, and Mono Green. Those being the three most popular decks, right? Then you've got Mono White Humans is kind of like following right behind Nerf, and like Hidden Strings, the Lotus Field combo, and now the slow emergence of the Blue White Lotus Field deck. But for the most part, you're going to see the majority be the 2 Rakdos decks and Monogram. Unfortunately, right now, in the next 2 weeks, because next weekend's the Pro Tour, and then the weekend after that is the ban update. So Pioneer Modern are not really safe come August 7th, right? So I do have, like, if WotC does their bannings correctly, we should be seeing hopefully a Karn ban for Monogram, and hopefully a Fable the Mirror Breaker ban from Rakdos decks, just to lower the power levels of these 2 decks, right? So I do imagine that most of the other decks are pretty safe unless they go after something from the Soul Tide Lotus Field deck, but I also don't think they'll ban anything just yet from it. So if I have a suggestion of what to start working towards for now, I'm biased towards Spirits because Spirits holds very true dear to my heart. But unless you want to go down the route of some blue tempo aggro stuff, I would probably suggest Mono White Humans is definitely one of the safest decks to start building at the moment. Maybe even Gruul mid-range might be fine too. That's another one that's probably safe. I can't imagine them banning Gigantha.
Yeah.
But I would also want to just ask, I guess one of the big questions would be like, what is your preferred play style? Because Pioneer, I would say right now, is its format positioning is, I know a lot of people say play draw, but I am more the believer of, if you play a deck that suits your style and you play it for long enough, you'll get very much rewarded for knowing the ins and outs. Unfortunately, there are some matchups that if you keep the nuts, right, it's hard to be beaten. But at the same time, I don't think people keep the most amazing hands at all times, right? More or less, they're just trying to mull into a hand that will let them not die in the first 3 turns. So
That makes sense.
But yeah,
It's a very fast format, isn't it?
yeah, I would definitely recommend playing a deck that is forward-leaning. I'm not a fan of the control archetypes in this environment. I know that there are some pilots who love control from beginning to end, but I do believe it is a very aggressive-leaning format. So picking an aggro deck or picking a mid-range deck that is Thoughtseize related is probably a good place to be.
Okay. Thank you for those suggestions. So what I have in mind so far would be like jumping into Gruul mid-range, possibly White Humans, buying the Orzhov Humans Pioneer Challenger deck and picking it apart for Mono White Humans. And then I was also thinking about, what do you think about combo decks like Greasefang, like Abzan Greasefang right now?
I honestly, I barely see Greasefang anymore. I think for the most part in paper, a lot of people have dropped it. I don't know how much it really pops up online anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but and I've been hearing, I've heard some weird stuff on Twitter. People saying they should ban Parhelion, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, why are we touching Greasefang?
Right.
It's just like nothing, right? Like it's, I don't know. It just falls behind so quick. Like it does have the insane draw of going, turn 2, like turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Fiend's Informant, turn 3 Greasefang, bring a vehicle from your graveyard back into play and whack you for 13. Like sure. But there are like a chunk of decks that could just go either turn 2 Rest in Peace, turn 0 Light of the Void. After Sideboard, you just go Rending Volley on the Greasefang before they even get the trigger off, right? Like,
Wow.
yeah, there's just lots of answers to the deck, but people are just petrified of just getting turn 3 Helion out of existence. And I'm just like, you really don't need to be that worried. I think a lot of the time.
Okay, that's fair. That's
Like-
fair.
Like, I think people are too traumatized from Winota before it got banned, and
my
Grease Fang's
God.
more tame version of Winota.
Yeah. Wow.
It's not even the best combo centric put big dumb creature into play like reanimator.
Exactly.
It's not even the best of the bunch that
No.
goes to creativity. So
Yeah.
Um, and if you
Alright.
want combo, you can just play Nykthos. But I
Yeah.
don't know how Mono Green's going to be after August. Is the thing.
Oh yeah. You made a good point. You made a good point about that.
Yeah.
I'd wait until